What is going on, guys? Gaston right here, and into this video we're going to be talking about a subject that a couple of you guys asked in my past videos about the Sony A7C. Now that question is, how does the Sony A7C compares to an A6000 camera? And even though I actually made a comparison already about the Sony A7C compared to the Sony A7 III, I thought that, you know what, why not? Why we don't compare the Sony A7C with the Sony A6600, which happens to be a camera that shares a lot of the features that the Sony A7C has. So grab your drink, grab your popcorn, grab your sandwich, whatever you like, and let's get started. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Gaston right here, and before we jump into this video, let me remind you of my giveaway of the Sony A7C. To enter, it's super simple. Subscribe to this channel right now. Go enable notifications and follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Gaston Shutters. I'm gonna be making the announcement on Christmas. So good luck to all of you guys. Alrighty, so how both cameras compare to each other? Like I mentioned before, there are a lot of things that are gonna be very similar between the Sony A7C and the A6600. But also at the same time, there are a lot of things that are going to be different, and I think those are the things that may be worth the upgrade. Now let's talk about the things that are similar. Now, for example, both cameras are going to feature a similar body as the A6000 line. So we're talking about a body that is flush completely from the top. You are going to have the EVF on the side to left-hand side. It's not the greatest EVF, but gets the job done. And you're going to have also the similar layout of buttons and dials, all around the camera. Now, when it comes to the buttons and dials on the Sony A7C versus the Sony A6600, you're gonna have actually more option on the Sony A6600 because you have more customizable buttons. Now, one of the things that you're gonna notice at a glance is that these two buttons right here that you have in the Sony A6600 right now are replaced by one single move or record button. Now the camera that I have right here is the A6400 because the A6600 is filming me right now. But there is something that actually looks more similar than the A6400, than the A6600, and that is going to be the grip of the Sony A7C. Take a look at this grip. As you can see, the grip on the A6400 is less shallow than the grip on the A6600, and the one on the Sony A7C is very similar, even though the A6400 uses a small battery and the Sony A7C uses the larger battery, just like the one on the A6600. However, I don't think that's gonna be a problem because if you're gonna be using, bigger lenses, chances are that you're gonna be holding the camera by the lens, and the camera is actually so light that I didn't find any inconvenience for the grip being a little bit less shallow. Basically, when it comes to ports, you're also gonna have similar ports. You're gonna have a microphone input, you're gonna have a headphone jack, micro HDMI, micro USB-C, but also on the Sony A7C, now you're gonna have an additional USB-C port. Now this is gonna be great because you're gonna allow you to charge the camera faster and also to download, all that information from your camera faster onto your computer. And the other thing is that both cameras are gonna have a single SD card slot. So these are gonna be at a glance some of the things that are very similar among both cameras. Now let's talk about what's different from each camera. The number one thing is going to be the sensor. The Sony A7C features a full frame sensor, 24 megapixel, and the Sony A6000, A6600, A6400, they're all gonna have the 24 megapixel but APS-C. Now, I read in some of the comments saying that, I don't need to upgrade, I already have 24 megapixel, but 24 megapixel from APS-C is going to be completely different when it comes to resolution on the full frame 24 megapixel because the number one thing is going to be low light performance. Now, by having a full frame sensor, every pixel that composes that 24 megapixel is gonna be a larger pixel, whereas on the Sony A6600, you're gonna be cramming more pixel in a smaller sensor, therefore resulting into not as good low light performance. Now, Caleb Pye made a comparison of the Sony A7 III, which is the same sensor that we're gonna find in the Sony A7C, and he compared it towards the Sony A7S III, right? And the image quality, the low light capability video was very, very similar. So if low light situation is something that you want to upgrade from the A6600, well, the Sony A7C is going to be a great option. Now, another thing that is going to be different, but at the same time is kind of similar, both cameras are going to have image stabilization, but the Sony A7C is going to have IBIS. It's also going to have gyro data being recorded to the footage. So the camera is going to record the gyro data of the sensor, you know, in space, and then you can actually utilize the software called Catalyst Browse to upload your footage and further stabilize it in post. Now remember, every time you do that, you're going to incur an additional crop, you know, for the image stabilization recomposing the shot. Now let's talk about the screen, because like I mentioned before, both are going to feature some sort of flip screen. Now the Sony A6600 is going to flip up, whereas the Sony A7C is going to flip to the side. And one of the things that you're going to notice is that may actually be good or bad depending which system you decide to go with, because on the Sony A6600 you have the hot shoe mount right here. So if you mount any accessory or a microphone right here, well, guess what's going to happen, right? It's gonna block the screen. And Sony has some microphones that can actually connect directly through the hot shoe mount, like this one right here, and you know, you don't have to cable or anything. So if you're gonna be doing that more, the Sony A7C is gonna be a no-brainer, because the screen is gonna flip to the side, so there's not gonna be anything blocking your screen like it is right now. Now on the other hand, if you're planning to use your camera like I'm doing it right now, where I'm using the A6600 and I have connected a microphone, a micro USB powering my camera, and the headphone jack, then the A6600 flip-up screen is a better alternative for me, because there's not going to be anything conflicting with the screen when you plug all the things on the side. So that is something to keep in mind, guys. I mean, you're still going to see image, but it's going to be somewhat blocked by the cables. Now, the other thing that the Sony A7C has is a faster processor that is 8 times faster as the processor from the Sony A7 III. So you're going to get faster autofocusing performance and pretty much faster everything with the Sony A7C. Now, is it worth the upgrade from the Sony A6600 to the Sony A7C? And I think that this is gonna come down to, you know, a couple of things. Number one, have you already invested in full frame glass, and are you willing to spend the money on full frame glass? Usually full frame glass is gonna cost you more than APSC glass, because if you're planning to use APSC glass on the Sony A7C, yes, you're gonna be able to do it, and yes, you know, it's not gonna be a problem in video, but when you put that glass and you're trying to shoot stills, you're gonna crop even further, giving you an image of 10 megapixel rather than 24 megapixels. So, you know, you're gonna be using a portion of that full frame sensor when you're in crop mode in the Sony A7C, and it's not gonna be so good for photography. Now, if you already own full frame glass, it's not gonna be an issue, and it's gonna be a no-brainer, because you're gonna be able to utilize the full properties of the lens in the full frame body, giving you better low light performance, a shallower depth of field, and everything else that comes with using native full frame glass on full frame body. Now, the other upside is going to be image stabilization. If you're trying to go for a system that is going to give you better handheld footage, then the Sony A7C is going to be a no-brainer. Number one, we're going to have a better IBIS, but also you're going to be recording all the time gyro data, and then you can utilize that information to stabilize your footage in Catalyst Browse. Now, a lot of people have been saying that, you know, this is almost the same as the warp stabilizer, but it's actually not, because the Catalyst Browse, what it's doing is actually recognizing where the camera was in space and then using that information to stabilize your footage, versus a warp stabilizer that is trying to guess what you're trying to do with the camera, giving you those undesired results. So this is gonna be it for today, guys. You know, don't hesitate to ask me any questions, drop your comments down below, and I'll do my best to answer each one of those. But until then, I'll see you in the next video. Oh, wait, remember that if you are actually interested in a Sony A7C, you can win one for free. I'm gonna list the link right now so you can follow the rules. So good luck to all of you guys, and now see you later.